One of the large Army helicopters is taken off. It is known that the Army helicopters are loaded with what is called riot gas, though we're not quite sure what kind of gas it is. Anyway, here come the helicopters, and they are now heading for the prison. One of the large Army helicopters now going overhead and over the wall into the prison.
Okay, at the very top, that was a live news crew up there hovering above Attica Prison on the morning of September 13th, 1971, nearly 50 years ago. And then all of those photos you saw or don't see since you're listening, but we're making this into a video too. It's very important that we do. We're from Attica. Throughout the 4-day takeover, and then, of course, the massacre. I'm Randy Critical, by the way. This is Randy Critical live on the fly on WBAI 99.5 FM in New York City. We are, last week we had Marty Stoller on talking about the 50-year anniversary of Attica, which comes up September 9th, at the beginning of the rebellion, and ended on September 13th. There's a huge event, a virtual event, both on the 19th and the 13th. And I suggest you, as Marty pointed out last week, it's going to be a lot of great panels. And you can access and watch it live stream or participate in some of the virtual panels by just going to atticaisallofus.org. That's ATTICA, allofus.org. That's next week. That is the 50-year anniversary of Attica, a significant date. And so what we have today is, I was going to get Cornel West on, but I decided we had an interview back in at the 45-year anniversary right here. And I had him on for about 15 minutes, and he was on at the end of the show. I couldn't find the show, but our good friend at the Pacifica Archives, Otis McClay, found it for me, so we're going to play that. I really can't improve that interview. It's really great from way back then. So that's our special treat, is the 2016 45-year anniversary of Attica with Cornel West. We'll play that soon. I just want to say congratulations to Bernadette and Chuck Slatkin over there at NYC Free Assange for a great event that they organized over at Washington Square Park last Saturday. It was really quite an honor to be part of that and to speak, and there was a huge turnout there. So that being said, oh, by the way, if you want to, and a lot of people are asking, what happened to Assange Countdown to Freedom? Hey, it didn't go anywhere. It is on Progressive Radio Network every Monday, prn.fm at 10 a.m. in the morning. We just did one with Steve Donziger, Assange's brother, Lee Camp, Craig Murray's wife, and it got like tens of thousands of hits and views. So every Monday at 10 a.m., we're going to continue it right there. Also on Rokfin, ROKFIN, you'll be able to watch the video as you can at randycritical.com, AssangeCountdownToFreedom.com, Randy Critical Live on the Fly at YouTube. But today we're talking about Attica, and that's where we're going right now. Attica, Bill Kunstler, I worked at Kunstler Fund for, I think, almost 15 years, was there on that day. And we're going to play this excerpt. This is Bill Kunstler the day after of the massacre, coming out at a press conference, and we'll be right back on the other side of this beautiful, not beautiful, but kind of a sad event that day. But Bill was spot on and brilliant as usual. We'll be right back after this clip. Bill Kunstler at Attica.
Thank you very much. Yesterday, I think at exactly this time, Tom Soto on my right and I and about 8 others walked into D Block of Attica Prison. We faced some 1,500 prisoners, most of whom's arms were locked together. These were the so-called rebels of D Block. I brought with me to read to you what these men wanted, what their cry was to a government that murdered them today. They said this: "We are men, we are not beasts, and do not intend to be beaten or driven as such. The entire prison populace has set forth to change forever the ruthless brutalization and disregard for the lives of the prisoners here. What has happened here is but the sound before the fury of those who are oppressed. But demands that will bring closer to reality the demise of these prison institutions that serve no useful purpose to the people of America, but to those who would enslave and exploit the people of America."
Bill Kunstler, what can I say? The greatest. So that year, 1971, there was a lot of uprisings in prisons, including in San Quentin, and a lot of action there. And that was the year, August 21st, I think, that George Jackson was murdered by prison guards. So what we're going to play here is his mother right after that murder, and then come back, and the rest of it was from before. And I'm going to have to say goodbye to you right now. But remember, next week on Thursday, the 9th, and then the 13th, go to atticaisallofus.org and participate in this great, series of events that are coming up, because it's very important. Okay, I'm Randy Credico, live on the fly. This is George Jackson, and the rest is me introducing Cornel West, and then Cornel West the way it was 5 years ago. Okay? Enjoy.
Do you think that George's death was inevitable, given the kind of things he was saying and writing?
They couldn't let him live. Wouldn't be any way possible for them to let him live. He's a black man. They're afraid that people will begin to listen, and they had. People all over the world had begun to listen to George, and I certainly know the people in this country had. That's the reason why they framed him to be murdered the way he was, to try to discredit everything that he had said, to try to paint him as an insane maniac, an animal. That was the reason for it.
Could he be violent?
Only if people were violent to him. I can be violent also, and I imagine so can you. You see, that's the whole story of America. They take their violence and turn it back around on somebody else. I don't have to talk about American violence. You can look all over the world and see American soldiers everywhere fighting in other people's countries and killing them. So if I were running the country in America, I wouldn't open my mouth about violence. As many people as they've murdered in Vietnam in the past 10 years, and they're going to talk about violence. As many black people that get killed every day in this country and nobody knows or cares, and they're going to tell me about violence. How they wiped out a whole nation of Indians, and they're going to say something to me about violence. I don't want to hear it.
So there you go. That kind of sets the stage for this interview with Cornel West 5 years ago. And this is the 50-year anniversary, once again, of Attica. And we're going to begin and end the way it was that day when I interviewed Cornel West. It began, it was transitional music. He was my third guest that day because he had other things to do. And it's going to begin with Working on the Chain Gang by Sam Cooke, and it's going to end with Johnny Cash from singing San Quentin. And that's it. And so that's it for me. And we'll talk to you next week. Enjoy the show.
Working on the chain gang, that's the sound of the men working on the chain gang. All day long they're saying of the men working on the chain gang. That's the sound of the men working on the chain gang. All day long they work so hard till the sun is going down, working on the highways and byways and wearing a frown. You hear them moaning their lives away, then you hear somebody say, that's the sound of the men working on the chain.
You got him? All right. All right. That's Sam Cooke. I think our next guest knows all about Sam Cooke. And you do not need a introduction. Hello? Do we have Professor Dr. Cornel West on the line here?
How you doing, my dear brother?
I haven't seen you in a long time. I think the last time we were in court together at 100 Center Street, where we were convicted on disorderly conduct charges.
Brother, it was a blessing to go to jail with you and Carl Dix and Stephen Phelps and a whole host of others, my brother.
Yeah, it was really a lot of fun being in jail with you up there. It was you and Carl Dix that kicked off this in, stop, and frisk street movement, and Carl should be given a lot of credit for that. A lot of times he's overlooked. But that night in jail at that precinct was a lot of fun, I must say. It was like Barney Miller time, wasn't it?
Well, brother, you brought a whole lot of life to all of us. We sang some Motown songs, but of course, most importantly, we were just in a tradition of trying to bear witness to justice, keeping track of the humanity of those precious young people who at that time were being so disproportionately targeted and insistently and incessantly targeted by the police. Now, we know stop and frisk still going on, but I mean, I think at that time it was just so out of control, it was unbelievable.
You think they reinvented the name? Did they just reinvent the name? I think it continues almost.
Oh, no, I think it's still going on, but I think for scope, I think there has been a curtailment of it. There's no doubt about it.
When Bill de Blasio named Bill Bratton as the police commissioner?
Oh, absolutely. No, we just figured, wait a minute now. We one of the reasons why we thought was that we were going to get a shift, a paradigm shift when it came to the policing in poor communities, especially black and brown poor communities. And of course, we had our critique of Brother Bratton, and there he was again. But we've seen this before, though, Brother Randy. So-called progressive politicians come into office, and lo and behold, you get the same crew.
The White House. What about the White House? The last 8 years, how disappointed are you
my God.
with this president?
Well, you end up with a Wall Street presidency, a drone presidency, a massive surveillance presidency, in the name of hope and change. And unfortunately, we didn't have enough voices. We didn't have enough organizations that were willing to tell the truth about the Obama administration. And of course, it's going to come back to haunt us, my brother. Yeah. Very much so. But I do want to salute you.
We're going to move to what we're talking about. We're talking about 45 years.
1971.
This date.
Attica Rebellion.
Yes. That's why I called you. I want you to just riff on that for a while. Give us your thoughts, your recollection and some reflections on Attica and vis-a-vis today.
Well, I mean, I go back to at that time I was 19 years old. As you know, I've taught in prisons ever since I was 17, and I was just blessed to teach Rikers there to my philosophy class just finished up recently. And at 17, I was already involved with the struggles of what were going on in prison. So 71 was very clear that the level of devalued life, especially black and brown poor life in prison, was barbaric. You're lucky to be able to take a shower in hot weather. And so what you actually got was the black freedom movement spilling over into the prisons. As you know, it was 2 weeks after Brother George Jackson had been killed.
In California.
So
And exactly, at San Quentin. And so you got this kind of response and reaction, but that black freedom movement spilling over into the prisons, concerned about what? Basic kinds of conditions. Prison conditions, prisons' rights, just trying to be human beings, some space, some access to water, some access to cleanness, on and on and on. And when we saw the response of the state at that time, Nelson Rockefeller, it was vicious, it was ugly, and let's just be honest about it. What is it now? 45 years later.
45 years today.
I don't think we've learned a lesson. The country hasn't learned a lesson, man. We've seen the quadrupling of the prison system under both Republicans and Democrats, led by white politicians, black politicians, brown politicians. It's the neo-liberal regime that militarizes along with financializes and privatizes in the larger society, that makes it difficult for people to escape from not just the economic poverty, but the breakdown of public life, the breakdown of community, the breakdown of solidarity. And it's the capitalist civilization and backdrop with its empire around the world, and bringing in that military force. And we've seen the militarizing of police departments, for example, in urban centers in the last 10 years. This is especially so under the Obama administration, where you've seen the escalation of the warlike weapons available for urban police departments. And we saw it in Ferguson.
You were there in Ferguson, weren't you?
Cities as well. Oh, very much so.
You were there. You've been arrested. Nomination of Frederick Douglass. That's what we West. There's
that kind of moral passion that Theodore Parker and Frederick Douglass. But you want to be, just a little bit like Harriet Tubman, a little bit like Ida B. Wells Barnett, and a little bit like our dear brother, who I love so deeply, William Kunstler.
Yes, he was at Attica.
Oh my God!
Did you know Kunstler?
Right, well, I was on television with him 2 or 3 times, so I didn't know him, but we had conversations. I know you had real intimate.
Yeah, he was very close. His daughter's listening.
But he is your godfather, though,
yes, right? Yes. His daughter and his wife are both listening. His kids are listening to this show.
William Kunstler is one of the great freedom fighters of the 20th century, and I always mention him when you're talking about white brothers who was willing to love black people, love brown and black and red and yellow and white, poor and working people, and then using his brilliance, his legal skills in Attica in those days, my brother.
That's the first one they went to. The inmates in Attica, the prisoners in Attica went to Bill Kunstler to be the negotiator because they trusted him. There's a certain aura.
Right there,
yes.
The black prisoners bringing in had earned the kind of respect and reputation with black folk, and of course he had who had been under vicious attack. Kunstler is somebody who heroic action of the prisoners themselves. I mean, all of this as we move into 2016 and 17 and 18 and try to build on what we learned in September 13th, the day of the ugly attack. Was it 43 dead, my brother?
I think it was 45, but maybe it was 43,
was
45.
It 45?
Yes.
Yeah.
I know you were there with Sarah Kunstler and Carl Dix and Reverend Phelps, I think 4 years ago, was it? On the, the 40th anniversary, 5 years ago, up there at Riverside Church. And you had a wonderful...
Yes.
Wonderful,
yes, exactly
not a celebration, but a memorial, and that really kicked off you and Dix getting together to start this movement against stop and frisk.
The brother Carl,
yes,
has just been wonderful. Sister Sarah, though, she comes right out of that rich Kunstler legacy.
Yes,
right
she really. She's working.
Have you read that new book, though, my brother? The Heather Ann Thompson book, Blood in the Water.
I have not.
I've heard of it. They say it's the most meticulous study of the Attica rebellion.
Oh yes, I know you're out there. You're an advisor for
That's
Jill
right.
Stein. Do you have much hope that she can raise some of these issues, get them out there? She can get into the debate.
Well,
She's good
you
on
see
race, right?
that sister Jill Stein and brother Jamu Baraka just arrested, dealing with this key
In North Dakota.
That's right, the pipeline in North Dakota, and I think we've actually had some victory there. I know Winona Duke and so many of the other visionary and courageous indigenous brothers and sisters and others just bearing witness in a magnificent way. And at this point, as you know, though, Brother Randy, man, it's just a matter of getting up, telling the truth, bearing witness every day. You don't really know whether you can win or not short term. It always looks like it's a David versus Goliath like situation. But the thing is that we have to keep the motion going.
Listen,
keep the truth
absolutely.
telling and justice
you had to
fighting going.
You got to keep moving.
That's why I love your radio
David,
station. That's why I love your radio
David
station.
Walker's appeal. David Walker's. That's right. You got to keep moving. We're all part of this link, right? Or this chain link fence, or whatever you want to call it. You know, David Walker's appeal didn't end it. Elijah Lovejoy didn't end it. He got killed. Other people were killed. Nat Turner, Gabriel Prosser, along the way. Then you had all of those in Boston in the abolition movement. Garrett Smith up north, and you just got to keep moving. You said that you got to be willing to go to jail and or die if you want to see change.
That's right. There's no doubt about it. That in the end, you're choosing to be a certain kind of human being. No one of us perfect, but you're trying to tell the truth about the suffering in the world caused by structures and persons who choose within those structures to be indifferent and callous to the suffering of others. And this is not just a matter of skin color. That we know, look at South Sudan. You got indifferent, callous leaders making big money, and yet the suffering is going on. We can go right to Asia. You got occupation of Kashmir. You got Dalit people in India who are being mistreated. We go to the Middle East. You got failed states. You got U.S. invasions and occupations that leave tremendous lineages of suffering. You got our precious Palestinian brothers and sisters who are under Israeli occupation, whose humanity needs to be lifted up. You go back to peasants in Brazil. We can go on and on and on. This is a human affair. It's something, again, Brother William Kunstler understood so very well. So did Martin King. So did Malcolm X. So does Brother Randy. I tried to myself.
Well, you are really you're as John Brown was referred to by Melville as a comet. You're one of those comets that just you rarely see in life, and I really appreciate you being part of this. I just want to ask you one last question.
Sure.
About Julian Assange, because the new developments came out. You were recently interviewed by Julian Assange, or was it vice versa?
Yeah, well, I'd gone to the embassy in London a couple of years ago and had a chance to interview him and put it on the radio show. I then had my radio show with Brother Tavis Smiley, and I had a magnificent dialogue with him, and I stand with him. I stand with Edward Snowden. I'm glad to see Brother Oliver Stone's film coming out this week.
This Friday.
Absolutely. I'm calling for the pardon of Brother Snowden, just like I've called for the pardon of Mumia Abu-Jamal. I've called for the pardon of Oscar Lopez Rivera. We're going to be in Washington, D.C., October the 9th, to highlight the plight of the Puerto Rican brothers and sisters and why Oscar Lopez Rivera ought to be
absolutely
free. So with Leonard Peltier. True, with Sundiata, and we can go on.
You're all over. I'll tell you something. You are a breath of fresh air. You're a big ball of energy and a freedom fighter, and I love you, and thank you for you.
Oh, love it, the man in black, the man in...
San Quentin, you've been living hell to me. You called at me since 1963. I've seen them come and go, and I've seen them die. And long ago I stopped asking why. San Quentin, I hate every inch of you. You've cut me and you've scarred me through and through. And I'll walk out a wiser, weaker man. Mr. Congressman, why can't you understand? San Quentin, what good do you think you do? Do you think that I'll be different when you're through? You bend my heart and mind and you warp my soul. Your stone walls turn my blood a little cold. San Quentin, may you rot and burn in hell. May your walls fall and may I live to tell. May all the world forget you ever stood. And the whole world will regret you did no good. San Quentin, you've been living hell to me.